Wim Hof, if you're watching this, thank you so much for this technique and for that. You know, you're changing so many lives, and this is just one way that you've contributed, so thank you. Happy Thursday. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Roberta and this is Dhamma Inspired Living. So today I would like to talk about my experience using the Wim Hof method to manage my pain during labor. And I'm super excited about sharing this because I just think like this is just mind-blowing, and I think this could help other people as well. Though disclaimer is I don't know what's best for you, and this is not a recommendation for you, but this is more just me sharing my own experience. And if you feel that you would like to take some inspiration from it, then great, but if you don't, then that's also fine. Alright, so where should I start? Right, I'll do it in a kind of like a story form. So when I was pregnant with my second child, I was not feeling so well, and especially in the third trimester, but even the first trimester, but the third trimester I was feeling not so good, physically mainly. And I decided that I'm going to start doing the Wim Hof breathing method. And if you go to Wim Hof's website or the app, it says, disclaimer, we do not recommend pregnant women to do this. And part of the reason that almost everything has that disclaimer is that there's not a lot of research on pregnant women and certain things, practices, because I guess it's not the most ethical thing to experiment on pregnant people. And yeah, for this reason, most things just have like a blank thing just slapped on them, not recommended for pregnant people. So if you're a pregnant person, like, you're pretty much like, there's nothing I can do. And that's just the nature of being pregnant, that you kind of need to kind of go with your intuition and just do what is right for you. And most things are not going to be recommended, or they will say don't do it. And I decided that I'm just going to do what feels right for me and see how it goes. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start doing this Wim Hof breathing. I've already done it before, so this was not the first time I had experience with it. And I was like, right, I'm going to see how it goes. I started doing the practice and I felt alright, I felt good. It didn't feel like it was affecting me in a negative way or affecting my baby in a negative way. In fact, whenever I was doing the Wim Hof method, my baby just came alive and it was just like, you know, moving and doing stuff. I guess the oxygen really helped with him to like wake up, or maybe just the fact that I was breathing so loud. He was just like, what are you doing? Yeah, so I started doing it during probably the last trimester of my pregnancy, and I knew in myself that, or how I was kind of visualizing my birth and what I was creating in terms of what my birth is going to be. I knew that I would want to use the Wim Hof method for pain management. A little bit of information here about birth and pain. There's a really good book, well, I say really good, it's actually very dry, but it's a good book in terms of understanding things. So if you enjoy dry books that help you understand things, then I recommend it. It's called Childbirth Without Fear, and the idea is that it connects being scared with having pain during childbirth. And the reason being is that when you're in a fight or flight mode, the blood goes to your extremities, right? So your blood doesn't stay in your uterus, but when you're giving birth, all the blood needs to be in the uterus, because the uterus needs oxygen to function optimally, to be able to do the contractions. So the idea is that if you're scared, all your blood goes into your extremities, and then the experience is going to be really potentially painful, right? Or it might even stop the birthing process depending on which stage you're in. Especially if you're in the beginning or the active labor stage, it might stop or halt your labor or your progress because you're scared. So the idea is that you really need to be in trust and in full presence in yourself and relaxation in order for the birthing experience to be pain-free. And this guy who wrote this book, who was a gynecologist, I think, he discovered this by accident because he went to some births, and one time he went to a birth and he was offering this pain relief to this woman, and the woman was like, no, I'm fine. And then when she gave birth, he asked her and said, well, why didn't you want the medication for the pain relief? And she's like, was it supposed to be painful? Like, I didn't experience that, you know, it wasn't painful for me. And so that got the guy thinking like, wow, what? You know? So he started to go more into that research about that. So having said that, my thinking at the time was, and by the way, I know this because I'm a doula and I'm like a birth geek, like mega birth geek. So anyway, my thought was, well, I know that pain is the reason that you feel pain is because you don't have enough oxygen in the uterus or in the cervix. So if I over oxygenate my body, that means that there will be enough oxygen in my uterus, right? And then in my cervix. That was my thinking. And also, if when you're doing the Wim Hof method, your mind is very focused, and it doesn't really have that much time and space to start thinking about fearful things, because you always just bring yourself back into your breath. So I was like, right, this sounds like a good idea. And so this is the background. So I had this in mind, I was preparing for it. And I'm not going to go through my whole birth story because that's a video on its own. I'm just going to talk about the active stage of labor and when I started using the Wim Hof method. So it was probably about an hour before Mate was born. That's his name, that's my son, Mate. And I started using it when I got into the birth pool and my contractions really kicked in. I mean, they were already kicked in by that point, but they weren't, I wouldn't really say they were super, super intense, except one really intense contraction before. But they were sort of like 2-3 minutes apart, like 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. And you know, if you've given birth, and if you haven't, I'm going to tell you, that the way it is that you have like maybe 2 minutes of nothing, and then you have a contraction. And usually if the contraction is like 30 seconds, 45 seconds, a minute, it's really intense because it's building up for a minute, you know, and you have to be with it for a minute. But for me, it was just like 10 seconds, 20 seconds. And that's not that bad, because it's like builds up for 10 seconds and then leaves for 10 seconds. So I was a bit like, nah. But then when I got into the pool and I went into the warm water, I feel like I could really relax. Also because I could just be like, yeah, I feel like I could really, really relax. And that's when I started to do the Wim Hof, and that's also when my contractions got more intense. So what I did, it was that I was just kneeling in the water, in the warm water. Just a wee interruption to check whether you've managed to like and subscribe. Please do if you haven't, it really helps with the algorithm. And yeah, back to the video. And I was going through the Wim Hof breathing, which if you don't know, kind of looks a bit like that, right? And I did like 30 or 40 cycles of the breathing. And then after the breathing, I did the breathe in and hold. Like so. Breathe in, breathe out and hold. And then I held for as long as it felt comfortable. And then after that, I breathed in and I waited for a bit. And I had a contraction. It was like magic. And then when I had a contraction, I kind of went like this to the birth pool. And I was with the contraction, I was breathing through it. Actually, mostly I was making a sound like, you know, when you've given birth, you kind of make that low sound to help, to open up your vagina through your vocal cord, and your jaw is your like hips. And then the contraction would pass, and then I would go back into my kneeling, and I would do the breathing, breathe in, breathe in, breathe out, hold, and then a contraction would come on. It was beautiful. It was like an orchestra. And actually, though the contractions were quite intense, it was so much easier for me to relax, because it's so important to relax, right? It was so much easier for me to relax, and actually I wouldn't say that it was super intense or mega hard. It was intense, but it was nothing like, oh, I can't do this type of intense. Like, I was quite calm throughout the whole thing, which was a massive difference compared to like how I was with my daughter. When I had this phase with my daughter, I was like losing it. I was like, I can't do this. Whereas now it's just like, okay, this is intense, but it wasn't overwhelming at all. So that was super cool. And I remember like the last pretty big contraction, I was like, I got through this breathing, I stopped breathing, and I remember it coming on, and I remember just like in myself being like, let go or just allow, and I could really feel like my cervix or my uterus contracting, my cervix opening, and after that it was like pushing time. So I was doing probably Wim Hof for about 40 minutes, maybe less than 40 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that. And yeah, and after that the the pushing phase began, and I lost my Wim Hof at that point. I just was not expecting it to have my son already like come so early, and so I was just like, oh my god, and I totally tensed up. And then the last 20 minutes, the pushing phase was pretty intense, I will say, but I wasn't using Wim Hof. The whole birthing experience from when my water broke and when I started at my first contractions to when he was born was 4 hours, and I'll make a separate video for that experience, but for now I think I will leave it at that. I really wanted to share this because I feel that Wim Hof's method with the cold exposure and the breathing and the mindfulness and meditation, I feel it's so important for people's minds and immune systems and pain management and their health. And I feel like maybe this is an area that has not been explored yet, the pregnancy and birth. So I really hope that maybe in the future there will be some kind of exploration into this, because I feel that it would really help with women giving birth. I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you for watching, and if you liked this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Liking especially because it helps with the algorithm. And yeah, I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye for now.